Good evening to you and welcome back. Attorney Jay Davis is here from James W. Davis and Associates for our It's the Law segment. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
All right, so we are talking about the coronavirus. Lawmakers have reached a more than $8 billion deal to fight coronavirus in the U.S. This comes as California reports its first coronavirus death, and Washington confirms its 10th, and here in Georgia the governor has confirmed 2 cases in Fulton County. So Jay, I have so many questions for you here, but try to get through all of them. My first one, if you test positive for the coronavirus, can you get in trouble for not remaining in self-quarantine and maybe possibly putting others in danger?
The likelihood is yes. This is a developing phenomenon on exactly what's going to go on here. So in England, they've already started laws which makes it mandatory and even criminal not to comply with the isolation. So here it's still somewhat voluntary. It's probably going to change from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Probably come out federally with something that will generally govern everybody. But right now, if you put other people in danger and you do it as a risk, whether you're a corporation or an individual, if you inappropriately expose other people to what you knowingly have, then you may be liable for whatever damage you cause by doing that.
All right, good to know. So if you test positive, the CDC says you're quarantined, keep that in mind. Next, let's talk travel. Can someone be held liable, maybe like a cruise line or an airline, if you catch the virus while traveling with them?
That's going to be whether or not they've acted in some way that's either reckless or even negligent. So reckless is a little bit stronger mishap than negligence. They just should have known and didn't know. Somebody came in, they noticed some symptoms, they went to the doctor thought it seemed like it, but not really, and didn't advise anybody. That's going to be negligent enough probably to create a liability for their employer, if it's a cruise ship or a restaurant or whatever that might be. The question is going to be, did they act with a reasonable amount of care? And if it was negligent, they're probably going to create liability for themselves.
And I know Diamond Princess Cruise Line already seeing some of those lawsuits rolling in. I have to ask you this question. If your work requires you to travel to an area with a known outbreak or known cases, can you tell your job no?
Well,
or sue
right
your job if they make
here in the United States, at least, we still have an autonomy of our own body. You may lose your job. So if you choose to do something and then that's determined not to have been reasonable, your job sort of required that whatever level of risk that it might have been, and they had appropriate precautions, you may lose your job and not be able to give it back. I would always tell somebody, if you've got concerns about what you're being exposed to, your biggest thing is to be true to yourself and to make sure you're not, if you don't want to take on that risk yourself. However, if your job requires it and you lose your job, but if your job is requiring you to go into something that's a known hazard that you're not otherwise required to be exposed to, then you probably would be able to maintain your job and keep your job especially if it's a large employer, by saying that was an unreasonable requirement they made and that you acted correctly, not them.
All right. Thank you, Jay, so much for breaking that down and answering those questions for us. We'll send it to Cecilia for a final look at the forecast.